Imagine standing in the heart of the Rocky Mountains in the mid-1800s. Snow is piled higher than your windows, temperatures plunge well below zero, and the nearest town could be days away by horseback, if the roads aren't buried. For settlers carving out a life in this unforgiving wilderness, winter wasn't just cold, it was a fight for survival. Yet, somehow, thousands managed to endure, even thrive, in tiny log cabins perched against some of the harshest conditions in North America. So how did Rocky Mountain settlers survive frozen winters in the 1800s? Let's step inside their world. First, their homes were not just cabins, in the cozy sense we think of today. These were rugged log structures built with survival in mind. Settlers often used thick lodgepole pine or spruce, stacking the logs horizontally and sealing the cracks with clay, moss, or a mixture called chinking. This made the walls airtight, insulating the inside from bitter winds. Roofs were pitched steep to shed heavy snow, and some were covered with sod for extra insulation. Windows, if they existed at all, were small, often covered with oiled paper instead of glass, since glass was expensive and rare in remote areas. The doorway was usually hung with thick animal hides in addition to a wooden door, keeping warmth from leaking out. Inside, the centerpiece of survival was always the fireplace or wood-burning stove. These were kept roaring almost constantly through the season. A good stockpile of split logs outside the cabin was as valuable as gold. Settlers knew that fire was life. The fireplace wasn't just for heating, it was also where all the cooking was done. Large iron kettles and Dutch ovens hung on hooks, simmering stews of venison, rabbit, beans, or dried corn. Food that could sit over the fire all day without spoiling was a lifesaver, especially during snowstorms that could last for days. Every scrap of heat was used. Families sometimes placed flat irons or heated rocks near the fire, then wrapped them in cloth and tucked them into their bedding to keep warm at night. Even so, mornings meant waking up to frost on the inside walls of the cabin. Food storage and survival diets. Keeping food from spoiling in summer was tough, but winter solved that problem. Nature itself was a freezer. Meat was often smoked or salted, then hung outside in the cold. Root vegetables like potatoes, carrots, and turnips were stored in cellars dug beneath the cabins, insulated with straw. Hunting remained a lifeline. Settlers trapped small game, shot deer or elk, and fished under ice when possible. Dried fruit, beans, and flour were staple supplies that families tried to stockpile before the first snow fell. And when supplies ran low, many settlers turned to wild plants and herbs they had learned from Native American neighbors. Clothing and bedding. Warm clothing was non-negotiable. Wool was the most reliable fabric, and settlers layered it under coats made from animal hides. Moccasins, lined with fur, were common footwear, and mittens were often made from deerskin. At night, families piled into beds layered with quilts, buffalo robes, or bear hides. Children sometimes slept 3 or 4 to a bed, sharing body heat to survive the coldest nights. Daily life in winter. For settlers, winter slowed the pace of life but didn't stop it. Chores still had to be done. Water was fetched by breaking ice in nearby streams. Livestock had to be fed and protected from freezing. Snow often buried paths, so settlers built snowshoes to move around. Inside, families kept busy mending clothes, carving tools, and reading aloud if books were available. Winter nights were long, and the cabin often became the entire world until spring. Perhaps the most powerful survival tool wasn't material at all, it was community. Settlers often lived miles apart, but in emergencies, neighbors braved storms to help one another. Barn raisings, food sharing, and midwife visits kept small settlements alive. Native tribes in the Rockies also shared vital knowledge, teaching settlers how to snowshoe, trap animals, and recognize medicinal plants. Surviving a Rocky Mountain winter in the 1800s was not for the faint of heart. It demanded preparation, toughness, and resourcefulness. Cabins provided shelter, fire gave warmth and food, and community offered hope. These settlers endured long months of isolation, freezing winds, and endless snow, yet they laid the foundation for the mountain towns we know today. So next time you sip hot cocoa by a modern heater, remember those who faced the Rockies with nothing but logs, fire, and sheer determination. Their survival wasn't guaranteed, but through grit and ingenuity, many made it through the frozen silence of winter. If you enjoyed this dive into frontier survival, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more history content, and let me know in the comments, would you have lasted a single winter in an 1800s Rocky Mountain cabin?